Hi, I'm Anush Salaniwal.
Hi, I'm Michael Ohayon, and we'll be the host for today's podcast.
Welcome back. For those who don't know, the Scripps Ranch Professional Career Exploration Club is an organization dedicated to interviewing professionals for many different career paths. We aim to help students find a career that's right for them.
And we have a very special guest today. Give a warm welcome to Justin Apger. Mr. Apger is the COO of the San Diego Downtown Partnership and a founding member of Mission Edge. Mr. Apger, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thanks very much for having me.
So, Mr. Apger, what are the greatest advantages of running a nonprofit?
I think there's a lot of advantages. I think the biggest advantage is that you get to go to work every single day knowing that you're making some kind of difference. You're not necessarily lining the pockets of an investor, but you're able to see incremental change in the community that you live in, and you're being able to see on a daily basis how you're improving, potentially impacting the improving of someone's life for the better.
Wow. So what are the greatest disadvantages of running a nonprofit?
Traditional nonprofits have a lot of challenges, namely funding. Funding is always a challenge. Donors make different choices in how they want to invest in different causes. So that changes. The traditional nonprofit model is sort of being revitalized to think more like a business. And that's a really good thing, I think, for our nonprofit sustainability. But funding, and then I think also sometimes it's really hard to find talent for people who are willing to, essentially work for the wages that nonprofits are able to offer given their budget constraints.
So, when running a business, what do you think is the key to organization?
I think the key to keeping an organization just sort of healthy and sort of in line with its priorities is really knowing what you're working toward. I think at the end of the day, the way, my role essentially is organizational performance as the COO. And so my goal is to continue to keep the organization focused on its priorities, on its strategic growth. And I think as long as you have all your employees and your team members knowing what those priorities are, you can kind of keep everyone going in the same path and really feel like they're investing in making a difference in what you're trying to do.
So regarding work, school, more personal matters, what do you think is the key to personal organization?
Personal organization is I think, I tend to have a little bit of OCD, so I'm a perfect person to ask this. But I think, for me, it's always knowing where I'm heading. I like to keep my mind focused on sort of what's next. And then it's sort of being able to work backwards from that. So it's understanding, okay, you know what, in this next quarter, I'm going to be thinking about this. These are my priorities. This is really what I want to put my heart into. And then it's being able to create a plan around that and then stay focused. And sometimes it's even having someone in your life who wants to keep you accountable to those goals. And that might be a friend, a partner, a boss, and being able to say, hey, I have this goal, but I'm having some trouble reaching it, and have that discussion with someone so they can help redirect you and partner with you in that.
So you're into the more, start big picture and work your way down.
Say that one more time.
So you're into the more, you start with the big picture and then you kind of work your way down and work out the finer details as you go.
Yep, exactly.
So many people now are trying to start their own startup. So what do you think the telltale signs of a successful startup are?
Yeah, no, startups. I mean, it's a really rewarding experience to create a company. I think the first thing we always thought about when we created the last company I worked for was understanding that what we were selling was actually what customers wanted. I mean, so for a startup, like the worst thing you want to do is be trying to peddle some sort of service or brand or something, and your clients essentially are not even interested in it. So it was really making sure that we're giving and we're providing a service that people need, that they want, and that they're willing to pay for. And then I think the other thing was really around making sure that we were finding investors and the funding to sustain the organization and keep it running. And then also, I think most importantly is understanding the entire vision of the organization. Where was it going? What kind of societal problems were we going to continue to try to solve? And then get our team members all corralled and sort of energized around that.
So how do you find, like you work a lot with organization of teams. So how do you find the balance between nurturing and pushing your employees and team members?
Yeah, I like to think I'm a motivator. I like to try to think about, what first and foremost, with all my new employees, I want to know where they're going. You might be a director of marketing, right now, but that might not be your life path. And so I always try to sit down with my new team members and say, where do you want to be in 5 years? And then secondly, if they want to do something, then I'll ask them, how can I support you to reach those goals? And that might be as something as little as, connecting them with a mentor or a coach, I guess reimbursing their classes for something that they really want to do and they're passionate about. And so I think it's really important to know what they're motivated by. And then I think having an understanding of what they're motivated by helps you to understand how to push them in the direction to, challenge themselves and to continue to reach goals for the organization.
And that's actually a pretty interesting way of looking at it, because a lot of businesses, they're not as focused on the person as much as they are the whole. But this approach of actually focusing what do the employees want, opposed to, how to just generate whatever product or funds, I think that's an incredible way of going at it.
Yeah.
So how can high school students learn financial literacy?
The way I actually learned financial literacy was actually from my grandfather, who gave me like $10, I think, when I was, I don't know, a freshman in high school, and said, I want you to basically do whatever you can with this money to grow it. And so for me, it was starting mutual funds and just starting to like dabble in like stock market and trying to learn what that all meant. And then I think the second thing is I got a credit card early on, and I learned how to balance my money and my spending priorities through experiments. And then third, I remember taking a really good crash course on personal economics when I first got to, actually it was toward the end of high school, beginning of college, where I just learned like the basics of, not to overspend what I have and how to save something so that I'm saving for my future, even though it was like $10 at a time for each paycheck I was working. But it was starting to kind of experiment with investing and thinking about how to grow my money and grow my pie.
So knowledge is power, huh?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So what are the differences between managing a smaller group and, versus like a larger group? And what are the challenges for each?
The smaller group, I think I've been in both sides. I think for smaller teams, you have enough time essentially really to invest in your team members. You really get to know them really, really innately and understand what really makes them tick. And then so that helps make the experience that much, more strong and fulfilling. I think as you scale your teams and as you scale your business, it's hard to kind of procure that intimate feeling around, leadership and your employees. And so I think as you grow, it's just you have to create more space and focus to make sure that those interpersonal connections still occur, because you're running a marathon when you get to certain sizes. But if you don't know your employees, you don't know who they are, you don't know what motivates them, at the end of the day, you risk not having a successful company, because people are your product oftentimes.
So what impacted your career choices most in high school?
For me, I had a lot of really just, I think, teachers who invested in knowing me and invested in sort of understanding how to create the path where I wanted to go. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do post high school. I knew I wanted to go to college, get a bachelor's degree. I didn't know where, I didn't know what I wanted to study. And so it was really those teachers and those guidance counselors and everything who really were sitting down with me and saying, where do you really want to go? And helping me to create a lot of that plan, that structure around my path. And then connecting me with the resources, the internships, and everything that I needed to start to dabble in that experience of knowing what exactly I did want to do.
So when you're hiring for your organizations, what are the qualities that you look for in an applicant, and what makes an applicant stand out? Because I know a lot of people, especially in high school, a lot of what they're doing is building their resume, whether it be for, college or whether they're just going to get a job straight out of high school. And that's, a lot of people are worried, is this enough? Is this good enough? Should I do more? What small factors or big factors like really stand out to you?
Yeah, and I've hired employees right out of high school. I've hired them right out of college. I think I hire on potential. At the end of the day, I'm sitting in front of someone. I've done a lot of interviews, been through HR, I've been in HR for a long time in operations. I think I'm able to sit there across the table and listen to a person to understand what kind of potential they have. And really what it comes down to is it's wrapped into the speech that they're providing. If they're talking about, this is what I can do for your organization, this is how I want to help, and then they're able to say, and then this is how you can help me, that's a win-win. And I'm oftentimes looking for that win-win strategy it's not just about us as an organization, it's about what can I do to help you get to that next step. And if they can articulate that, then for me, it's like a no-win. It's a no-brainer rather.
So you're really focused a lot more on the people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a quality that we're missing a lot in these more like, industrialized world.
Yeah.
And I think that's an incredible, quality to have, especially within, a small condensed team that, the people are what matter in this.
Exactly.
So college takes a long time, and many people are wondering if a PhD is worth it. So what is the value of a bachelor, master's, or a more advanced degree in the application process?
I think in my experience with HR, it really depends on the field that you're going into and sort of the specialization that's needed for the career, for the career path. For doctors, for example, obviously you have to have a PhD and things like that. I think what I'm seeing more and more as a trend in HR is that people are really trying to convert experience into degree equivalency. And I think that's important because you do have a lot of, communities in our society who might not necessarily be able to afford college. They might not be able to access higher education resources. And that's putting them at a complete disadvantage if you aren't kind of looking at their rich experience and where they've taken their careers in juxtaposition to a person who has gone through a 4-year college. And so I think what we're seeing is people really trying to, like I said, look at that equivalency and really look at what people are bringing to a company and how they can contribute to its success versus just focusing on the BA, the MA, et cetera.
So you're not as worried as kind of what's on paper, like, those like, yeah, you're worried about the person as a whole, which is something that a lot of, applications are missing.
Exactly. And I think that's a big thing when I'm still recruiting, when I used to do a lot more recruiting for, CEOs and C-level and director level people, one of the things that they would oftentimes miss is the personal story, is like sort of why are they doing this kind of work? I mean, you spend so much time of your life inside of a job. You have to for the most part, what you do, and you like to come to work every single day to interact with the employees in your organization. If that's not apparent, it's rather, if it's not real, then it's very apparent in terms of an organization's culture. So, for me, it's being able to understand that personal story and being able to understand what they're going to offer us to help us do what we need to do as an organization.
And what do you think the most valuable class you took that helped you become an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh, it was Intro to Business in my freshman year of college. And we did a whole entire, I think, semester on Steve Jobs. And it was really understanding capitalism and understanding how he took something and made it into something that we live every single day in our lives with technology. And I think it was understanding that potential and him as a real life figure and what he's been able to do that really sparked my interest in creating something from nothing, which is, why I dabbled in startups.
So you were talking about the values of a person, which got me thinking about cultural diversity. So do you think cultural diversity is important in a business?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, if a business leader will not tell you that it's not important, then I strongly encourage you to maybe search for other options. Because at the end of the day, it's not even about, your traditional aspects of diversity. It's about converging a lot of different minds and a lot of different perspectives. And those perspectives come from, the way you're brought up and your family and your age and, sort of traditions that were learned, that those things sort of culminate into a really rich experience for a company and really help you to, I think, just create a well-rounded organization. And so it's absolutely detrimental more than ever that we have sort of that representation and sort of those different minds coming to the table.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a saying, especially in psychology, there's this kind of massive motif that the more, your experiences and what you do in your life, your environment is what changes you more than your genetics could.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very important.
Well, that was such an insightful interview, Mr. Apger. You shared some incredible perceptive advice into your career. We hope you learned as much as we did. And a huge thank you to Mr. Apger for joining us today. We are SRPCEC and we hope you enjoyed. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.